the grand final from second. Any one of the 8 this year is capable.
Oh, there's an incident. Now the judge says it's on. Someone got clattered.
Keith Senior and John Wilkin going at it, hammer and tongs.
Major contact, proper punch, yes.
As Tony Smith says, the adrenaline sometimes runs through their veins, irrespective of which club they play for.
The downside of having a competitive nature in a testosterone-filled sport, sometimes you came head to head with each other.
Rhinos legend Keith Senior had a fearsome reputation in Super League, and with it won 5 grand finals during his time at Headingley.
I've said all along, age is just a number. 33, but when it comes to stuff like this, you just want to keep going.
But it was when Keith was still playing at the highest level that things started to fall apart.
We're all superhuman and we can all go forever. That's the perception, and that's how you want it. But the realistic factor is, as soon as you get to 30, you're a veteran. You always want it to go on forever, but you always want it to be a fairy tale ending, and it didn't happen for me. Rupturing my ACL at 35, then to be told that I'd never play the game again, I probably was a little bit naive in thinking that I'd be okay. And when that situation arose, I wasn't prepared and I wasn't ready. And to be honest, it was a massive, massive slap in the face for me. And my coping mechanism was I ended up going out with the lads, having a good time, and something I ended up going home at about 2 in the morning. I ended up getting abuse from my wife at the time, and I ended up just getting up, getting out of bed, getting dressed, walking out, and I never went back. I walked away from a marriage because I didn't want to deal with it. I ended up moving in with Luke Ambler. One night I'd been out for a drink and I ended up coming home getting into a rage because of something that had happened, and I headbutted his wall, put my head through his wall. Thankfully it was a plasterboard wall, not a solid brick wall. You know, I'm waking up the next day not actually understanding what had gone on, sitting on his sofa, bursting into tears and basically thinking that I'd wasted my life. I've had a career what some of these kids dream and aspire to have, but my state of mental fitness was terrible.
Now, a decade out of the sport, Keith's preparing to educate others about dealing with major change through the Ahead of the Game programme. Later, he's presenting to the Milford Junior Rugby League team, but first, just time to catch up with a fierce old rival.
You know, I look back to that time in Super League, right, and there was big personalities. I'm not necessarily saying that they don't exist anymore, but we look at the likes of Paul Schoolthorpe, yourself, Andy Farrell, big, sort of macho, larger-than-life sort of characters. And as productive as that was for your professional career, what's your take on that macho persona when it comes to actually dealing with issues that you're having?
The game was built on that, boy. You look at the games from the 70s, 80s, early 90s, it was all about the fights, it was all about the aggression, all about the nasty side of it. It was basically thuggery. You coached it because, you know, you can't show weaknesses, you can't show injuries because basically people will pick on the weak.
Is that why you knocked me out in 2008? You barely connected. I was making you feel good.
That's what I was more embarrassed about.
Well, that's it, right? Just don't do it again, Keith. All right. I think one thing I find interesting about your story, Keith, was when you mentioned change. So your career finishing was quite an abrupt source of change, and when I look back to people I speak to, change is always central to their story, whether it's to struggle or to success. And that point in your career, that change from being at the top of your game or there or thereabouts to then not being able to play the game, that was a huge change. Were you ready?
Yeah.
Were you ready to deal with that?
Yeah, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
It wasn't my time. I didn't believe, and I still say it now, it was taken away from me.
Yeah,
my career was taken away from me. I fell out with the game. I fell out with a lot of people because I'd not accepted it. I've got to blame. Oh, it's your fault, it's the surgeon's fault. Used a dirty knife on my knee. Got an infection, these things happen. At the end of the day, it's nobody's fault. It just happens, doesn't it? It's life. The biggest constant in life is change, isn't it? And accepting that, and how you deal with that is a choice that you've got. And I chose a negative way. I ended up basically acting like a kid again, going on the drink, and that was the wrong way. Now it's a case of managing it a lot better. Understanding that, being able to control the controllables and not worrying about the uncontrollables. I couldn't control what happened to my knee. And then it's how you deal with that. There's the trauma, there's managing it, and then it's the acceptance. The accept of things that happen in your life. Very thankful and appreciative and grateful for the career that I've had now, which I've had to come to terms with and accept and appreciate.
Players like Keith and fellow ex-pro Sean Lunt have joined forces with the Movember charity to find out whether professional athletes can successfully deliver mental fitness training to young people.
I'm scared, Keith. Your mental health. I'd rather play back at Wembley than do this actually right now. I think I was less nervous back then. But I had 16 blokes with me though, didn't I? This, I've just got you big galoons. My anxiety is probably at the highest it's ever been, to be honest. I always get nervous, before a game, and it's just nerves at the end of the day, and we get it from good things. I've had it before games, big important games, and I've had it, daunting things like tonight, but hopefully these guys can take a lot from it and realise, just because I've played Super League and, I've been very fortunate in the game, that we're all human at the end of the day, and these guys, what these are going through, I've probably felt it the same, so it's hopefully I relate to these youngsters and they can take something from it.
So for what we're here for today, this is Help a Mate Out, which is a mental health literacy workshop. I've got Sean Lunt here with me today. He's going to be my partner in crime and he's going to be helping me along.
Nearly 2 years to the day ago, I nearly died. So we were playing at Leeds, I was playing at Hull at the time, and I went into for a tackle and I hit the top of my head and I felt a crack in my back. Didn't think anything of it. Again, it was just a physical injury that we've all had before, right? I woke up the next day and I couldn't lift my head off my pillow. So I had to get my wife to lift my head off my pillow as I got up. So a couple of weeks went past and it just wasn't getting any better. It led to a blood poisoning illness called sepsis. Any of you heard of sepsis? Yeah. Well, I've been very, very lucky. So I got put into hospital for 3 weeks and then a lot of these kids, they look at us professionals and think we're invincible, but we're far from it. I got a life-threatening disease called sepsis, which led me being in hospital for 3 weeks. While I was on the medication, I felt great. It was good. And then one day the nurse came and said, "Oh, you're all good now. Your sepsis is all gone. Your counters are down. Everything's good." Well, I thought that was it. Brilliant. I can get back to normal life. But that's when everything plummeted. I hit rock bottom. I got a thing called post-sepsis syndrome, which is a bit like PTSD. And that was when my nightmare began, really. I thought it was tough in hospital. I thought it was tough in them 6 weeks, but I didn't realise just how tough and mentally challenging that what I had to go through. There's times where I just wanted to come home, lock myself in a room and not speak to anyone. Didn't even want to see my kids. I know it sounds awful to say, but that's just how it was. There's times where I'd just drive home from training and I'd park around the corner, I'd just start crying in the car. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which way to turn to. I had no motivation. I couldn't walk upstairs without getting out of breath, and then I'd start, my anxiety would go through the roof, and then I'd get depressed after that. So it was just like a constant cycle. Every day it was the same thing. Going around in circles. So just gonna ask each other how we're doing.
I was snapping at the kids, I was snapping at my wife, and it wasn't fair on them when my ego was in the way. It was like, I've got to be seen to look strong. I'm a rugby player, I've got to be tough. When I finally opened up on my problems, they understood then, and my wife was like, well, if you're not feeling very well, at least tell us and then we'll give you some space. And it was like the weight of the world had been taken off my shoulders.
We can't help you if you don't tell anyone, yeah?
I still get down now at times, but again, it's just something that I have to deal with and get over. Would I want my kids to go through what I went through and make the silly mistakes that I made? No. So hopefully educating these guys at a younger age stops them making stupid decisions. The rapport players like Sean have built with countless young people in these sessions has encouraged discussions around topics rarely spoken about before.
Like Keith was saying before, we're all big, strong men, aren't we? We all like to think we can deal with all the problems that we get, but I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to do. But I sought out help. I went and spoke to sports psychiatrists and they helped, you know, and it took day by day. So like we say on this continuum, guys, even if we go down to the red, we can come back up to the blue, because I'm fine now, all good. So I can pick my kids up from school. My wife still loves me, so we're all good, yeah. So that's sort of my journey on that mental continuum.
I've just got to say, your missus must be very strong, so have you seen the size of his head? To rip your head off the pillow, she must be a strong one.
My dream is to play in the Super League.
I was excelling career-wise, but I was at crisis point in my head.